In the midst of battle, banning certain weapons shows our struggle with a tough question. How do we fight wars but keep our humanity? From chemical gases to blinding lasers, our history is filled with smart but scary inventions that show how we keep trying to find balance in the chaos of war. Number 1. Chemical biological weapons. Let's start with the ban on chemical and biological weapons. Why have many countries in the world decided to abandon them? After all, war is war, and all means seem fair. It seems that one only needs to wait for a favorable wind towards the enemy, disperse some toxic substance, and soon after, they would either die or be forced to abandon their positions, thus winning the battle with no losses on your side. For instance, in April 1915, near the town of Ypres on a 6-kilometer front, the German troops waited for the right wind direction and released 168 tons of chlorine towards the French trenches, resulting in about 15,000 poisoned, 5,000 of whom died. However, despite this, such weapons have several drawbacks, such as dependency on weather conditions, meaning you must wait for the right conditions before use. Changes in wind direction could completely spoil the plan and the gas could deviate from its intended path, possibly missing the enemy or even turning back towards you. There were certain incidents of this happening, and some types of weapons such as hydrogen cyanide decompose quickly under sunlight and in humid conditions, making this a tremendously horrifying weapon to handle. But mainly, public outrage influenced the ban, which led to negotiations after World War I to sign a number of legal documents designed to prevent the use of chemical and biological weapons. The most famous of these became the Geneva Protocol of 1925 on the prohibition of the use in war of asphyxiating, poisonous or other gases and bacteriological methods. In video games, chemical and biological weapons are just another strategic tool used to control parts of the map or temporarily weaken the enemy, like in Call of Duty or Battlefield. But this simple portrayal glosses over the real-life horrors these weapons caused, such as lasting harm to people and the environment, which is why they were banned globally. Number 2. Expanding bullets. Expanding bullets were banned by the Hague Convention of July 29, 1899. The ban on their use was reiterated in the Second Hague Peace Convention of 1907. This was due to the excessive cruelty they caused to the enemy, as unlike regular bullets that pass through, they expand within the body of the victim like a flower, causing terrible injuries. They were referred to by many as the flower of death. The principle of their operation is simple. Unlike regular bullets, the expanding bullets were semi-jacketed, meaning the tip of the bullet lacked a hard casing, and upon hitting the body, it deformed, increasing in size and causing massive wounds, severe pain shock, and blood loss. Soldiers could even craft such bullets crudely right in the trenches by making cross-shaped cuts on regular bullets. Despite the ban on using expanding bullets in armed conflicts, soldiers continued to improve their ammunition during both world wars. However, those caught using such modified bullets were usually executed immediately upon capture. In video games, expanding bullets, often called hollow points, are portrayed as upgrades that increase damage against unarmored targets, ideal for maximizing impact in close combat scenarios. While games like Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six Siege implement these with the focus on realism in terms of damage, they do not fully capture the gruesome injuries and ethical controversies associated with their real-life use. Historically, the use of such bullets led to horrific battlefield injuries deemed inhumane and subsequently banned in international warfare, which is rarely addressed in the gaming context. Number 3. Napalm. Napalm was created in 1942-43 at Harvard University and tested in combat conditions a year later on July 17, 1944, during an aerial bombardment of German fuel depots. However, its most brutal use occurred during the bombing of a German city in February 1945, where it literally melted human bodies. After the end of World War II, the formula for napalm was significantly altered and renamed Napalm B. In its new form, it was much more powerful than its predecessors, burning significantly longer, not 15 to 30 seconds, but up to 10 minutes. It was almost impossible to remove from skin, and while burning, it not only burned through skin but also caused severe pain, burning at temperatures of 800 to 1200 degrees Celsius. Additionally, as it burned, napalm actively emitted carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide, depleting oxygen from the surrounding area, thus being able to kill enemy soldiers who might have taken shelter in dugouts, bunkers, or caves. These unfortunate ones would die from suffocation and extreme heat. The ban on using napalm and other types of incendiary weapons against civilians and the horrific scenes broadcast on television from the Vietnam War led to the document banning its use, which took effect on December 2, 1983. As of January 2012, 99 countries, including Russia, had signed this document. Napalm is featured in games like Viet Cong and various historical war games, often dramatized for visual and shock effect, depicted as a sea of fire engulfing everything it touches. While games capture the immediate fiery destruction, they seldom address the horrifying after effects such as severe burns and the long-term environmental destruction. In reality, the use of napalm, especially against civilian populations as seen in Vietnam, caused international outrage and led to strict regulations against its use, a gravity that games can only superficially represent. Number 4. Anti-personnel mines. In terms of mortality statistics, they are not as deadly as any of the aforementioned weapons, causing only about 5 to 10% of total casualties. However, the injuries they cause or the psychological pressure they create are a different story. Many soldiers simply refuse to step into a minefield regardless of who gave the order. By simply announcing in some article that a certain area through which the enemy would advance had been mined, the enemy's advance could be halted until engineers and various machines arrived. Even if not fully mined, placing just a couple of mines here and there for show could buy some time for preparation. The most terrifying aspect of mines was that some could be triggered by mine detectors, some could not be detected by various metal detectors, and also mines without self-destruct mechanisms or neutralization meant that even long after a war, civilians could go into the woods to gather mushrooms, step in the wrong place, and either die or lose limbs. The terrible injuries from mines were another reason why the UN adopted a constitution in 1980 banning certain weaponry, but due to poorly drafted protocol, only 65 countries signed it initially. However, in October 1997, the Ottawa Convention on the Prohibition of the Use, Stockpiling, Production, and Transfer of Anti-Personnel Mines and on their destruction was signed by 122 countries. As of 2017, 163 countries were participant in the treaty, yet the ban is still violated. Video games often use anti-personnel mines as a defensive tool, allowing players to protect territories or cover retreats. Games like Minefield and Call of Duty present mines as strategic yet manageable threats. However, this contrasts sharply with their real-world impact, where they cause long-term danger to civilians long after conflicts have ended, leading to devastating injuries or death. The portrayal in games lacks this lasting impact, focusing instead on immediate tactical advantages without the ethical and humanitarian implications. Number 5. Laser weapons. In the 1980s, laser weapons designed primarily to blind opponents permanently were banned. The culprit was the blinding laser ZM87 developed in China. Officially, until 2000, 22 units of the ZM87 were manufactured at a state-owned company's plant before production completely ceased to comply with international regulations. ZM87 could permanently blind an opponent from 2 to 3 kilometers away, and a special lens could extend this range to 5 kilometers. From a distance of 10 kilometers, the laser could temporarily deprive an opponent of sight and spatial orientation. However, this ban does not apply to models that only temporarily blind and disorient a person or are used for hitting the enemy's optical systems and similar military tasks. In December 2017, the use of laser weapons causing permanent blindness was recognized as a war crime. Laser weapons in video games are often depicted as futuristic tools that offer precise and clean ways to incapacitate or eliminate targets. Games like Destiny and Star Wars Battlefront use them for their visual flair and science fiction appeal. In reality, the use of lasers, particularly those designed to blind, has been banned due to their cruel and irreversible effects. While games portray these weapons as advanced technology, they often overlook the ethical dilemmas and permanent harm that led to their real-world prohibition.